Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the BrightEyes Podcast. This is an episode where I interview Kevin Liang. Kevin is the founder of a company called Aqua Design Innovations that specializes in aquarium products. They're very cool. I met Kevin through Pathways, and he was also on the BrightEyes trip, and among other places. Kevin and I have gone on to become good friends and talk to each other about a lot of different ideas, and he always has very insightful things to say. Part in this episode, as we ran into technical difficulties while recording it, there's a section towards the end of the video where I had to switch out my camera because the main one wasn't working. So sorry if the video and audio is a little choppy towards the end, but I'm sure you'll still be able to get value out of it. That being said, all the show notes are available on the website. That's brighteyes-students.org. And so without further ado, here's Kevin.
We at BrightEyes recognize that to be successful, we all require someone willing to invest in our potential and vision.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast. Today with me is Kevin Liang, and he's a good friend of mine. And as you can tell, if you're watching the video, that we are in between a whole bunch of boxes, like a crap load of boxes. And
backdrop should be pretty cool.
Yeah. How are you, Kevin?
Good, man. Thanks for coming.
Tell us a little bit about what all this is around us.
Yeah, so around us is they're called EcoQubes. They're a product that we built and launched on Kickstarter last December, and we've been working really hard on manufacturing them in the last 10-11 months now. Crazy.
Yeah.
And they're finally here. They got here this past Tuesday, and we just literally opened every single one to test them and repackage them, and ready for shipment tomorrow morning.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool watching your whole process from kind of beginning to end, and putting up the Kickstarter and watching you talk about different manufacturing things and your trips to China, and now they're actually here in front of us as we speak. So I wanted to dive a little bit because I never actually feel like I got the chance to ask you how you came up with this idea, or even your whole history. I mean I know you've done aquariums for a long time, but I don't know. Why don't you just comment a little bit about how do you even what interests you about aquariums, and how did you get into this whole thing?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I haven't answered that in a while. So when I started aquariums, from the very beginning, it was a really good friend of mine. I was just hanging out at his house. I went to his house for the first time, and his bedroom was filled with aquariums. I was like, dude, what the hell are you doing, man? I thought he was growing weed or something. And
how old were you?
I was like 14 or 15.
14.
I was in high school, and he introduced me to this concept of growing plants and creating beautiful sceneries within aquariums, and I ended up getting into a small niche sector within that niche sector of breeding shrimp, breeding really high-end shrimp called crystal red shrimp. So I was actually one of the first in the U.S. to breed it at that time. Yeah, and they were super expensive back then. Now they're a buck each, but they used to be $30 each, and they would go up to hundreds of dollars each. Wow. And each batch of babies would you would get 30 per batch of babies, so it was all profit. But in order to breed them, you needed to have a really well established ecosystem, and that's sort of where it's sort of I learned to grow plants, not for the sake of growing plants, but for the sake of the ecosystem, so that the water is clean and the shrimp are healthy, so that they can breed. And of course, I invested a lot of money into buying the initial stock for them to breed. So I was like, I wonder if I could, make some money back.
I see.
And so as soon as I had my first batch of babies, I posted on eBay, Craigslist, Aquabid, which is a lot like eBay for aquariums, and every single auction sold.
Wow.
And I made like $1,200 that one weekend, and I was like 15. So that was what really got me into it.
So was that just like the first success? Like just you just bought the shrimp and then you...
Well, it was like a total obsession, right? It was like a year before that where I was like just tinkering with aquariums and reading every single thing I could read online about crystal red shrimp.
Okay.
And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna spend all my money, which is like $200.
Yeah.
I'm gonna spend all my money buying this initial stock of shrimp, and then gladly it worked out. The first batch worked out.
Wow.
If not, I don't know. Maybe maybe the EcoQube wouldn't exist, and ADI wouldn't exist. So that.
So I don't know much about shrimp. I mean, I love eating shrimp. Shrimp's my favorite thing to eat. But what's special about crystal red shrimp?
Dude, so they're like full size, might be an inch, 3/4 to an inch, and it's a Japanese variation of this Caridina genus species of ornamental shrimp for aquariums. And they're super fragile, and it's sort of, in the very beginning, it was really hard to keep for people. So it was a huge challenge for people, but they were like gorgeous. And the Japanese, you know how like they like to put their flags on everything, like koi, and same with the shrimp. They put their Hinomaru flag. They kept breeding until they saw like a red flag on the back of their shrimp. And those were like the highest end ones, and there'd be like different grades.
Interesting. So it's more of like a luxury, like premium, like aquarium animal, more so than anything else. Right?
Yeah, it's like if you can remember, like if you like kept Pokemon cards.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you gotta catch them all. It's one of those things, like the hardest Pokemon to catch. Or breed, right?
Okay.
So that was like the huge challenge. It's sort of like the pinnacle of aquarium keeping if you can breed these things.
I got it.
Yeah.
Wow. So okay, cool. So you did that in high school.
Yeah.
And then when did that phase out, or I don't know, like when did you kind of move on to the next thing in aquariums? What was that?
So of course, two years later, you know, more people started breeding them, and the online market was sort of flooded with these things. And I mean, it was still decent money.
Yeah.
You know, but it came down from like 30 a pop to like 10.
Oh, okay.
5 to 10. So I started focusing a lot more on like local guys.
Okay.
Because then I was able to sort of provide them with the experience they wanted and help them out with setting up their aquarium, sort of consulting when they came to my sister's garage where I bred all my shrimp. Yeah, and they got, you know, not all of them would be successful because it is really hard to do. And they would just ask me to go set up their aquariums for them. Okay. And when I went to set up aquariums for them, you know, they're working professionals, so their hobbies are a lot bigger than mine, so they're willing to spend a lot more. And when they do that, like, I'm able to sort of use their money to buy all the equipment that I like.
I see.
And tinker with it and install it on their aquariums. So like there I learned a lot.
I see.
Even more than I did before.
Okay. So then you kind of moved into was that kind of into college? You started like selling aquariums?
That was towards the end of high school.
Okay.
And then when I came to UCSD, I was actually really reluctant to come to UCSD just because all that stuff was going so well, but I knew it was the right thing to do.
Okay.
So I came to UCSD and sort of dropped all of that. But the plan was to come, you know, go to college, get it over with, and go back and continue that, right? Because it was so awesome. But you know, I came back, you know, that summer.
Yeah.
Just to work on this stuff again. And that summer was like when the installations part of the business really picked up.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that you were reluctant to come to UCSD.
Yeah.
Why was that?
So partially I would say it's the comfort of home.
Uh-huh.
You know, just being but raised in San Francisco. You know, all my memories are there, all the friends are there.
Yeah.
So that's like, I would say like 20% of it, but 80% of it is like, I felt like I was already building a career.
Yeah.
But I knew my career could probably be a lot bigger than what I was doing, and that's why I came to UCSD.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you graduated UCSD.
I did not.
You did not graduate UCSD.
I did not graduate UCSD.
All right. So this is something that I've been meaning to ask you about, but I haven't got around to it.
Yeah.
So I want to hear, like, kind of, because I know you were pretty much in school for.
Yeah, I have 10 classes left. So, you know, freshman and sophomore year, you know, I was pretty on top of it. I wasn't, you know, getting straight A's, but I was passing all my classes for sure.
Yeah.
And in my third year, started slacking a little bit and focused on a lot on ADI. Most of my time was spent with ADI, actually.
I see.
My third year, and I only went to class for exams at that point. And I probably passed, you know, 3/4 of my classes.
Okay.
And then by like my fourth year, I didn't even finish a class. So that's sort of like the 10 classes that I have left. And then, you know, during my fourth year, for the first 2 quarters, I actually, you know, got to like week 4, week 5, and then dropped all my classes. And then I realized, you know, like by spring quarter, I was like, I'm never going to finish these classes anyway. And, you know, ADI has picked up enough at that point so that I can use it as an excuse to, like, stay away from school.
There you go. Would you consider yourself a dropout?
I'm still on leave.
Okay.
But, I don't know. Sort of.
I want to get your thoughts on just like education in general.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that I have very strong views on, and that's another person that was interviewed, Pat, in a previous episode, Brandon Lee, also has pretty strong views on. He dropped out too, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts on, like, you know,
Sure.
what is college for? Like, kind of, what do you see the role of it is? Like, what are some things that you got out of it? What are some things that kind of made you like, no, this is not for me?
Yeah.
Or,
So I think most of education was built initially to sort of create workers, right? Sort of fulfill the demand for these corporations that need to hire consistently. And of course, you know, things like 2008 would happen, and you know, corporations can't really stay around long term without the innovation of startups. And I feel like for a very long time, it was just larger corporations and 9-to-5 jobs dominating. And 2008 was sort of a rude awakening for this educational system.
You're referring to the market crash.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's sort of a rude awakening for the entire educational system built to feed these corporations.
Yeah.
And I think the role that college and the entire educational system used to fulfill does not apply to where our country is now. Actually, not just our country, I think the world.
Yeah.
And I think now education is a lot more about community and gathering, and I think college is still extremely valuable, probably for only the first 2 years.
Okay.
At least for me, it was it was very valuable for the first 2 years.
Okay.
I wouldn't have met you, I wouldn't have met Chris, I wouldn't have sort of met my team.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have grown this much without UCSD. I mean, UCSD was an incredible place. When I arrived, I was like, holy shit, like, these are the, like, probably I can't believe there are that many people with so smart condensed in such a small area.
Yeah.
And I was loving it, right? But after about a year or two, and your upper division classes start kicking in, and you don't have time for that anymore, and which is crazy. Like classes contradict it. Like it's so contradicting. It pulls you out of sort of the most important part of college, which is developing these connections and building relationships and learning these social skills for the rest of your life. What is math going to do for the rest of your or calculus, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to use calculus for the rest of their lives,
Yeah.
but they are going to value the relationships that they built in the first 2 years of college.
Okay. So then, because I know that I would still consider you like a lifelong learner, and you're one of the people that I like. Wow, this guy really is on top. Like really likes to learn. Like you're always sharing like articles and different things.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear your thoughts a little bit on like the difference between even just kind of where the education system is and where learning is. Like what do you feel like that space is, and what is that doing?
Yeah, so I think the education space right now is sort of like, I think it still provides value, like 1st to 5th grade maybe. Mm-hmm. It's like you learn the basics, here you go. But past that, I think we should allow space for people to specialize or dig into what they're more interested in. Okay. I mean, like people are like diagnosed with like ADHD or ADD when they're like that age, because you're taking a 10-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid and making them sit in a corner for 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like no shit, right? Yeah. So I think does that answer the education part?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I think past that, education is sort of really template driven, and I don't believe everyone should be learning the same thing past the basics. And then I think actual learning is out of curiosity. So I think the best education system should sort of ignite curiosity. Instead of trying to shove things into your head, they should help your sort of brain open up to new things. Yeah. I think that should be the role of education, and that is ultimately what drives learning. Got it. And I sort of, luckily actually, only sort of experienced that recently, and I see like much older people like sort of following their same patterns and daily routines and not actually learning. And I think when like you stop learning, that's like when you die. That's like you're dead if you're not learning. And I feel like the more I learn, it's crazy, it's incredible. Like I learn one thing and I find like 10 things that I don't know, right?
You find like 10 more things to learn.
Yeah, more things to learn, and you realize like there's way more, and then you learn like 2 more things and you realize there's like 20, 30 things that you don't know and you want to learn. Yeah. And then you just keep sort of going up this like tree, and it just never ending. And I think that's one of the things that like drives me most.
The desire to learn.
Yeah, and like the amount of stuff to learn. Yeah, and how and then sort of like the more you know, the more you don't know. Yeah.
The more you know that you don't know.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I'm in a very similar boat. I'm very like I fully believe like just everything about what you just said, and I've done a lot of research into learning recently, so you should check out there's a school system called Free and Democratic Schools. And there's this it's like they're all really small, but they literally it's a school where the children are in charge. Like there's the rules, like the children make them
like
up.
Alt school?
Yeah, I've told alt school in San Francisco. It's even more free than that. So they literally go to a house, and there's no rules for what they have to do, no structure at all. Like when they can leave, they can graduate whenever they feel like they're ready, and they just have to like submit a proposal to a counselor, like I want to leave, I'm done here, I'm ready to graduate, and then they can leave whenever. So they can either stay there out as long as they want, or they can move on.
Right.
You know, and usually that happens about the same time that everyone else does. But it's a really interesting system where like all the students vote on everything. And, so.
And okay, so off that,
yeah.
Another thing I think is so wrong about the education system is everyone can only move as fast as the slowest person in class. And I think that's like detrimental to progress of humanity in general, right? And I'm not sure if I shared the book Abundance with you.
Oh, no, I read it.
Okay, cool. So Abundance, the future is better than we think. Like with exponential growth in population and technologies and things like that, like there are a lot of huge problems to solve, and we need as many people to solve those problems as possible. But if you're slowing everyone down, it only slows down the overall progress of humanity.
No, I love that book.
It's
a great book. And so
mind blown.
Very, very lots of thoughts on education. I'm sure we could go off for days about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I wanted to dig in a little bit into just kind of this whole idea of kind of being a young entrepreneur. This whole idea of how do you take like what you're passionate about and actually build it into a product like the ones we have here. Like what are like some of the risks involved, and kind of want to dig into that whole thing of like how you even like take your idea. And I'm sure like I've never heard you share this personally, but like what were some of the things that maybe you struggled with or like had fears about when you were kind of starting ADI?
There's a lot. I'm trying to organize these thoughts.
I'm sure there is.
So let's start with the first step of starting, right?
Okay.
From having an idea. I mean, the truth is, from idea to doing things, there's a million unknown things, and you're just trying to figure out what's unknown and overcome it. So the first step is to take that first step into the unknown, figure out what the unknown is, solve it, and then you find the next unknown, and you solve it, and that sort of progresses you, likely not towards your idea, but that's what moves you forward.
Okay.
So what was the other part?
Yeah.
Forget.
Like I don't even know like how like Kickstarter, like the fears that you have.
Oh.
Like
so the fears.
Like here's kind of why I asked that question, because we have a mutual friend that was also on this podcast, Daniel Lee of Technology.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah.
And his approach is a lot different, right? For the Kickstarter, he hasn't even launched the Kickstarter yet.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to get everything that he knows, like so, to the point where he knows he can make it.
Yep.
And then launching the Kickstarter. Whereas watching you seem to take the opposite.
So because I did that, I warned Daniel. I was like, dude, make sure you got your product figured out before you launch it. So I'm really proud, like really, really proud of what we made. But like I would give it like a 99, but I feel like we could have been 100 if we just sort of hashed out all the details before we launched the campaign. And what happened was we launched the campaign and we showed sort of the look of the products. And after that, sort of to fulfill on the product that we sold, we engineered all the functionality according to the aesthetic designs that we showed to people.
I see.
But if we were to finalize everything and then show it to people, which is what I told Daniel you should do, because I made this mistake. I think if we did that, this product could be 100.
I see.
Yeah.
So was there like, was there like a holy crap, this thing's funded, now we actually have to get it together?
No, it wasn't like that,
It wasn't
man.
like that?
It's like I said, you get funded and you're like, okay, now I just have to make this.
Okay.
Little do you know, making it is like 3 times as hard as getting funded.
Oh yeah.
And like it's like it was our maybe like from a macro view, it was our second step into the unknown, right? Building it and selling it, and then making it, second step into the unknown. And we didn't know how hard it was until we did it. We started doing it, and then you realize there are all these more hard things you have to accomplish, and then you do the next hard thing, and you realize there are 10 more hard things that you have to accomplish. And so it's an extremely steep learning curve.
Yeah. What were some of the roadblocks or challenges that?
I don't even know where to start.
What were a couple of the biggest ones? A couple like the holy crap, like.
Of manufacturing?
Like anything, the whole process. We can go with manufacturing.
Yeah. So the holy craps of manufacturing. So the first one is what you envision and what you convey with your own words. People from other countries and other cultures will not see what you saw in your head, no matter how well you try to convey it.
Okay.
So, I literally did whatever I can. I Skyped our manufacturer every week, and not to say our manufacturer, had any issues. Our manufacturer was probably the best manufacturer we could ever find for us right now at this stage. We would have Skype calls sometimes every night.
Wow.
At least once a week, talking about walking through every single issue, where the glue goes, the drafting angles of the product for the molds, when the molds are going to be done, and like what you would typically think about manufacturing, like sort of payments and terms and things like that. That was like the easiest thing. All the details are the hardest things. How many LED ships do you want on it?
Yeah.
Crap, we never tested that. Where how the wires coming out of the products.
Yeah.
Dude, now we gotta rearrange the whole thing for the wires to come out of the same space. Like, so all those things that we didn't know we had to figure out. Like, we actually, we might have had an idea we had to do that, but we had no idea how hard it was. Like, making the box, man. You'd think it's pretty easy, right? That we did probably over 8 iterations on the box itself.
Wow.
And it might be because I'm like super anal about stuff like that, because it is your initial perception.
Yeah.
But of the product, but man, it's every single little thing that you see within a product, I appreciate like the way plugs are made, man. Like it's literally like it's a carving into a cavity, cavity of a piece of steel.
Yeah. That
they shoot plastic into at the perfect thickness, at the perfect temperature, at the perfect angle, in order to make that perfect shiny plug that you see like on a Mac, right?
Wow. Wow.
Everything I look around, I'm like, wow, that mold must have been so intense. So yeah, man.
That's a lot of respect for you, just watching the process of like manufacturing, actually building like a physical product. Like me and like I'm kind of more in the software space, so it's a lot easier at the very entry to just writing a couple lines of code. If it doesn't work, you just press a couple buttons.
Yeah.
And, we're good to go.
Right.
Push it back up. But I also want to hear your thoughts on like going Kickstarter versus like going like getting funded. Was that something you thought about, or was Kickstarter just kind of the only thing? Yeah,
Kickstarter was sort of like the only thing we were thinking about.
Okay.
So originally we were thinking about a licensing deal.
Okay.
And that's why we sort of made the product. And we were like, we're just going to 3D print this thing, license it to a big manufacturer. They're going to manufacture. They'll deal with all that stuff. But even big manufacturers can't manufacture these products.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
The company that does 5 to 6 million a year in revenue in aquarium products.
Yeah.
do not have the engineering expertise, the time, the resources to manufacture a filter like this.
Interesting.
Yeah, and 5 to 6 million. I mean, it doesn't sound like that's much, but in aquariums, that's a crap ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the original plan, and then of course we realized they couldn't do it. So okay, how do we do it? How do we get it to market? Let's Kickstarter was sort of the most obvious thing. End of 2013, you keep seeing these Kickstarter projects pop up left and right. I didn't even realize that funding was an option. Raising funding was an option. Okay. Yeah, it's like, well, you're just building something. You don't even have like proof that someone will buy it. Yeah. And it's an aquarium filter. Yeah. Like, I'm building an aquarium filter to raise venture capital?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's and even until like a couple of weeks ago, I didn't even realize, like, even at the point we are at now with really well proven demands, we didn't realize raising funding was an option.
Interesting. So then what's kind of the next steps? What's the future? You ship all this out of here.
Yeah.
All to your backers.
Yep.
And then what's after that?
So the backers sort of act as like beta testers, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you ship software, you wait for them to give you feedback. We literally fix every single issue that we can foresee, and it's just testing with 5 to 10 units with 20 to 30 people is very different from testing with 500 units and 500 people individually. Yeah. So we're just gonna wait for that feedback before we air freight the next few shipments in.
Okay.
And then it will be widely available on our website, adiventures.net.
All right. I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Awesome. And then really excited to say we have a second product coming.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Is that still in stealth mode, or?
We'll have our final prototype tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
And then it's marketing and production.
Oh wow. Are you gonna go to Kickstarter for that one too, or is that one?
We're thinking about it.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
All right. Well, hopefully, I hope to see that. I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm really excited too.
Yeah.
We have new volunteers every day.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that too. Like how big, how many people are working on ADI right now?
Yeah. So we have 2 full-times.
Okay.
And then 3 including myself.
Okay.
And then we have a bunch of contractors and part-times.
Okay.
Coming in maybe once or twice a week.
I see. So total, that's like.
Have you total
how many people are usually
involved?
In here? Yeah, like on site.
On site in here, 3 on most days.
Okay.
And then 5 on off days.
Okay. What does a typical day here look like, if there is one?
There isn't one. I mean, a typical day here, I would say we get here at about 10 or 11.
Okay.
And we usually carpool here together. So we chat in the car, what do we have to do today?
Yeah.
Usually prioritize at least 1 or 2 things. And make sure we get those things done by the end of the day. And then it's just all the other stuff, which is like, customer service, the orders, making sure they're straight, at least for the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Making sure they're straight. Might be like patents stuff, or it might be like, I do a lot of outside communication stuff, and the rest of the team does like the designs and the products, shipping, and everything else.
So what takes the most of your time?
Takes the most of my time. I would say it's split half between dealing with people.
Okay.
People as in like, getting advice from people to see if we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
And you have to keep, like, I have to be constantly learning.
Yeah.
The company can only be as big as I am.
Yeah.
Or the rest of the team.
As much as you can learn, yeah.
Yeah. So so I have to constantly, seek advice and grow in terms of not like my mindset, I think, and that's extremely important. For a while, I focused a lot on the business and operations and running it, and definitely not only I suffered from it, but the company itself suffered from it.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that until like you get out of it. So so I spent a lot of time, I would say maybe 10% of the time, getting advice, talking to advisors, other 40% of the time talking to contractors, right? Getting things done. So, making sure our timelines, we're meeting deadlines, the timelines are right, planning these things out with the team, checking up on progress of things.
Okay.
And then the other half would be on editing.
As in,
So editing. So I like to say the most successful CEOs. They're not like executive officers. They're like editing officers.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was gonna do a blog post about that.
Okay.
But
okay.
yeah, trying to do too much at once.
Let me hear this.
So I think like that 10% time I try to spend on growth. I did a lot of research into sort of what makes executives successful, what makes leaders successful. It's one, of course, how they put the team together, and two, how they edit the team. So hiring, firing.
Okay.
Editing what they're doing, so the entire plan and trajectory of the company. So what are we doing next? What have we done so far? Editing that and making sure we're on track to where we want to be in 6 months or 12 months. And then editing myself, what time, where am I spending my time? Should I be spending this way or that way? And then editing sort of the work, making sure it's aligned with our values, right? And our goals.
I never heard it put that way.
Yeah.
In terms of editing, but I kind of like the spin here. I wanted to get. You were talking about like advisors and people that you look for advice and things like that. Who are some of the things or people, I guess, and resources that you are usually the things you gather your learning from? What are those?
Yeah. Usually, it's sort of hard to say where I meet these people, but I don't want to say randomly.
Yeah.
But through mutual introductions and things like that, and one of the most important things, and I've acknowledged this many times, is and Tim Ferriss says this all the time, right? You are the average of the 5 people you associate yourself with most.
Yeah.
But I noticed that I never acted on it. So I literally went down my contact list and contacted the most badass people that like the most badass people. And I try to go to events. I try not to go to events too much because I used to go to a lot and waste a lot of time. But I try to go to the most badass events and just have 1 or 2 very meaningful conversations, and I bounce. Yeah, it usually takes about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how meaningful those conversations are. But that's been super effective for me. So I reap the rewards of networking. Yeah. But I don't have to spend the time at the event. So that's worked out really well, actually. So again, I just reach out to the most awesome people that I know, and then I tell them where I'm at now, where I want to be, and then I ask for their thoughts. And then I say, where were you before? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And how do you think you'll get there? And how do you think that applies to me? So that's given me so much insight, so much. And then sort of going back to that idea of being the chief editing officer, right? You just basically, that's another thing I edit on a daily basis, editing advice, right? You can't just take all advice and, you know, run with whatever you think is good. You sort of have to compile the advice, process it, see what other people think about the advice, right? Yeah. And then test it yourself, and then see if that picks up, or you think that's the right thing to do.
Got it. Okay. So who are some of those people for you?
Man, I mean, there are people that I know really well, but that don't know me at all, right? So like Tim Ferriss, right? There's James Altucher.
He's gonna be here next week.
Really? For what?
In TEDx San Diego.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I love that guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. And you know, for you know, I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. I sort of skim through them because they're so long, but and then Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Radio, I sort of skim through that as well. He gets really good guests that are very specific in their fields, which is really awesome. Whereas like Tim Ferriss and James Altucher get like the big badasses in their field, right?
And so it's interviews are more general.
Yeah. So those are sort of like the celebrities I follow.
Okay.
And then lots and lots of audiobooks, just all day.
Yeah.
And then people that I talk to on a daily basis, I consider mentors. So, you know, like just so I guess mentors, I'd call them. You know, Chris Yin, for sure. You know, Marshall Knopf.
Okay.
Chris's friend, you know, sort of supported me throughout this entire ADI venture thing.
I see.
And then, you know, sort of friends I met along the way. So like, our engineer, that built the EcoQube.
Yeah.
TJ Liang. Okay. He was a Sapphire, and then the founder of Sapphire. You know, I've met with him twice. Okay. Literally twice over the last 2 years. But I feel like he is one of my best mentors.
Nice.
Yeah, and you know, my second meeting with him was like last week, and the way we connected was just like insane. The insight I got from his advice was incredible. So his name is Jason Pyle.
Okay.
And then, I mean, I can go on and on, but last one right here is Kanan, who's the CEO of the Entrepreneur Challenge 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with him on the E-Challenge, and he really encourages me to like think big. You know, like I clearly remember like one of the things he said. He was like, you know, Kevin, like there are people that need to be doing these events and stuff, but you should just go out and do your business. Don't waste time on this stuff. And I was like, never thought about that. Maybe I should stop doing this pathways and e-challenge stuff, which were useful, but maybe I should focus on myself and where I want to be.
Got it. Cool. You mentioned books. That's something that I love books. I try to go through. I try to go through one a week.
Yeah.
What are what are some of your top books that you would recommend to people?
Okay.
Or actually that have impacted you, because recommending is a different.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, to start off, I never liked books. Okay. I used to think I hated books. Well, it's mostly because they make you read them at school.
Yeah.
And reading, actually, I still don't like reading very much. I can't really read more than like 2 pages without falling asleep. I see. So, audiobooks, and once I learned about audiobooks, I was like, holy crap, like a gold mine of information without reading it. So, top ones. So for people that don't really like reading out there, audiobooks, man. So, Abundance, the future is better than we think.
That's good.
Mind blown from that one. And, you know, made me think a lot bigger on the issues that we have today. You know, there are a lot of issues, but there are also a lot of solutions.
Oh, yeah.
Way more solutions than we've ever had. So, and then another one, 4 Hour Work Week, of course. Tim Ferriss.
There you go.
Those two. I mean, there's a few others. This one's probably boring to most people.
Okay.
Maybe I should say that. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
Ryan Holiday, yeah.
And then I got really into Stoicism. Yeah. I mean, and then How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie.
Classic.
Yes. Evergreen knowledge, right there.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
That's a very solid list.
Yeah.
I like that. 3 more questions. We'll wrap up here shortly. So the first one I wanted to ask. This is a question that Peter Thiel likes to ask a lot, and this question is, what is one thing that you find to be true that most people disagree with you on?
Yeah. So I think questioning everything from sort of your earlier childhood. So I think a lot of us are told sort of black and white things as kids, which makes a lot of sense. It's easier to understand. But I think for me at least, everything I've been told, even up until now, mostly up until like 18 or 19, I think should be reimagined or questioned again. So to be thought about again. And
yeah, that's a great answer. I think a lot of people, they find themselves believing the same things for their whole lives, and their whole lives they're held back by the exact same thing.
Right, exactly. And it's not sort of things that they're just told or other people tell them, but I think most of it, actually, probably 90+% of it is stuff within ourselves. So things I've been told, so then I've sort of created these structures in my head, like these are the things that should happen, or these are the things that exist, but sort of breaking all that structure and rebuilding it based from what we find out now and what we learn now.
Cool. So then, on that note, what are some things that you would recommend to someone, say a freshman in college that wants to start doing their own thing? What would you tell them?
Yeah. So first, get around amazing people. Be around amazing people, because it's really hard to not be amazing when you're surrounded by amazing people all day. Second is say yes to everything until you're completely overwhelmed, because you want to be able to try out every single thing, or as much as you can, so that you know how small you are in this massive universe.
Yeah.
We at BrightEyes recognize that to be successful, we all require someone willing to invest in our potential and vision.